Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wool Maven. I'm Kathy, and today we're going to talk about where to start as a beginner with your spinning wheel. And I'm going to go over some suggestions on equipment, what it'd be nice to have, and some little extras that, strictly speaking, aren't necessary, but would give you a little bit more optionality. So it all depends on what you want to do, but it'll give you something to think about. Anyway, before we get going, I do have a little bit of housekeeping to go over. More of a clarification. Last episode, which actually, this is funny because it was the first actual episode, so to already have is somewhat of a correction. I said it was all about whether you should use combs or cards, and I said that if you put different length fibers on a comb when you go and you comb them through, and then you go to pull it off, what you'll end up pulling off is the long one exclusively first, then the short one will be left all by itself later. So no matter how much blending you do on the actual comb, that they will still pull off separately. Well, I somewhat stand corrected. And the reason I say somewhat is because this was a bit of a different situation. I was watching a School of Sweet Georgia with Rachel Smith talking all about exotic fibers, but specifically more in the goat. And then she's going into Kiviot and that kind of thing. This is just cashmere right now. What she did was combine some merino, some cashmere, and some tussa silk, all comb top, and then just kind of layered them on a comb and pulled them right off. They all came off, so it wasn't super segregated. In this case, I think the merino would have been the longest. It did come off blended, but then to be fair, when she was spinning, she also said that she could feel the sections that were like heavier merino and lighter cashmere, for instance, and then more cashmere. The reason I'm still okay with what I said last time was that she didn't actually use the comb as a comb. She used it as more of a rearrange the fiber prep to realign the fibers. So it was more like a hackle. But anyway, so either way, I just wanted to be clear and own up to being somewhat maybe too broad speaking in what I said last time. So you can, as she clearly demonstrated, put different lengths on a comb. And as long as they'll all come off together, then it works. But if they don't, then it was an experiment that didn't work out. But for the most part, different lengths and vastly different lengths on a comb, they're going to come off separately. But if you're just using it as more of a rearrange the fiber holding facility type thing, so you don't actually comb back and forth, clearly it works because she did it. Anyway, I just wanted to clear that up. So for today, what we're going to talk about are my suggestions to someone who is looking to get started in spinning. And, obviously, you're going to need to buy some things to get started, unless you have some things and just haven't started actually using them. If you are a person who wants to get started spinning and you're looking to get your equipment, what exactly do you need? And then what would be more in the nice category? And the more equipment you have, the more options you have, the more versatility you have with what you can do with the fibers that you end up purchasing. To be blunt, there's a lot of cool stuff out there, and it's kind of hard to sort through because, boy, just as I mentioned with the whole comb correction there, was that in that video, she's doing things with the comb that you wouldn't normally think of doing. So if you get a little creative, you can do more with your equipment than like the generic recommendations for it are. So anyway, to make a short introduction long, we're going to get into more specifics. But first of all, let me start off by saying that honestly, when you're getting started spinning, the first thing you're going to need is patience. Give yourself some grace. Plan on it being kind of a stumble and fall your way into learning to get better. It will be a little frustrating at the beginning. If you understand what the equipment does and you have some, just basic guidance on how to set yourself up for success, you can get going fairly quickly. A heavy dose of patience and about 15 minutes a day, And I think you'll be shocked at how fast you can go from, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, to, wow, I just made some yarn. As far as wheel, I would be looking at something that is easy to use, listed out plain as day as beginner friendly. Some wheels are made to add speed to your spinning. I would call those more of an intermediate wheel. They're made for someone who really wants to be able to kind of crank it out, like the ratios in the higher teens or whatever. Those are awesome. Who doesn't want to spin faster? But as a beginner, you really don't need all that ability. What you do need is something that's easy to use, that you understand, and I would read the reviews and what is the wheel that people who have multiple wheels, what's the one they reach for when they just want to, watch a video or listen to a podcast and just spin a little. What's the easy to grab, my favorite wheel? It might not be the fastest or the most versatile, but gosh, it's just nice to use. And if I had to guess, what it's going to be is something, once again, that's listed as very beginner friendly and probably a Scotch tension system. And what that means, Scotch tension, for anybody who doesn't know, when you look at your spinning wheel, you have the big wheel that's called the drive wheel, and then it goes up to a whirl that sits on the shaft with your bobbin. If the drive band, so the band that connects the big wheel to the smaller stuff on top, if that just goes around once, that's called a single drive. If it goes around twice and is separate, and you'll see it, that's called a double drive. So what I would suggest is that you start off with a single drive. Now, some wheels, actually quite a few wheels, are versatile enough that they have multiple tension systems that they can be set up in. Like, for instance, my Matchless, pretty sure can do all three. I have it in Scotch tension right now, but I use it in double drive as well. But either way, just make sure that it can do Scotch tension and it's single drive, just because that'll be easiest to get started with. Now, the other word you'll sometimes see, the two tension systems are Scotch tension and Irish tension. What's the difference here? All it matters is which one moves and which one kind of holds things back. So in the Scotch tension, the flyer is the one that moves, and the brake, so the resistance to it all, is on the bobbin. Whereas in the Irish tension, the bobbin is the one that moves, and the resistance or the brake is on the flyer. And the bobbin is the thing where your yarn goes up onto. It looks like a spool. And then the flyer is the U-shaped thing that goes around the bobbin. And if you don't have the bobbin on there, it actually looks like a 3-tine pitchfork. Anyway, so that's a little bit more information than you need to know, but most people will just list it out as Scotch or Irish tension, and you're looking for Scotch. Irish is cool. I have a wheel that goes with Irish. It's just that Scotch tension gives you more adjustment, and for most people that will be better for you to start with. But there's reasons to use all three tension systems. It just, as a beginner, chances are go for Scotch. And notice I didn't mention any brand names. There's a ton of different wheels, and there's lots of great wheels available. And from what I've seen, I'll even make another blanket statement. Every manufacturer has a more beginner-friendly wheel, and some of those upgrade to be what I'd call more of like a lifetime wheel, where you can get different attachments, and that will make it more versatile for you to use later. Because at least speaking for myself, the wheel that I needed to start with needed to be simple so I could just get it out and use it. If it was complicated, if I had if I would have had to set up a double drive system, it would have just been too intimidating to me. Not that it's hard. It actually makes a ton of sense. And once you set it up, you're like, oh, wow, I was worried about nothing there. Yeah, it's easy to use, and I love spinning in it. As a beginner, it just kind of, well, like I said, it looked a little intimidating. So just get something that you think looks attractive to you, and whatever brand, they seem to all have a style. Some are more modern, some are more classic looking. Just go with what you like. By far the best option, if you can go to a spinning guild and try out some wheels. If you could go to some sort of demonstration at like a fiber festival, a lot of times there's folks there that are like, yeah, come try my wheel, because they just want to get you going if you'd like. And they'll tell you what favorite wheel that they have, or some of the places that sell, like the bigger outlets, have different brands. A lot of the smaller, like farm shop folks that sell, they tend to have one brand, which there's nothing wrong with that, because then you got local help that is, just a phone call or a text away. But I would definitely want to actually sit at the wheel and just give it a shot, because part of it, I'll be honest with you, part of it's visual. There are some wheels that firsthand I just don't care for the looks of, but it really doesn't matter. What matters is if you like it. And then if you like the looks of it, now sit down and how does it feel? Are you comfortable? And see, that's what would matter most to me. So you just want an easy to use, beginner-friendly spinning wheel that ideally you have at the very least sat down in front of, treadled it a bit, and just see if you like it. See if it's a good experience for you. And once again, plenty of brands have a great beginner-appropriate spinning wheel. All right, moving to tools. So this is where I'm talking about anything but the spinning wheel. What do you need? You don't actually need any other tool. You can do everything with just the wheel and a little bit of like common everyday stuff. Like you can set your yarn in a bowl in hot water, right? You can do it very, very basic. But what would expand out your abilities just a teeny bit would be if you could get a set of either hand cards, or if you're going to be working with more fleeces or your own fleeces, a flick carder is a good place to start. But a flick carder is more, at least what I end up using it for, is actual locks. So if you're just going to end up using mostly or exclusively what you purchase, like ready to spin fibers, then the first fiber tool I would think of getting would be a hand cards. The next thing that's going to help you out is a nitty knotty. And that's the thing that looks like a capital I, but the foot and the top are twisted so they're offset to each other. That's just the place where you take your yarn after you've spun it and wind it off onto the nitty knotty. So it takes it from being wrapped around the bobbin into a big long loop. And the nitty knotties come in all different sizes. Most of them are like one wraparound is a yard, one wraparound is 2 yards. The other thing is, if you don't want to buy one, you could wrap finished yarn around your hand to your elbow, but to be honest, that gets old pretty fast. So if you can get a nitty knotty, if you're like, gosh, that's kind of out of my price range right now, no worries. You can put one together with scrap wood. You can make them with PVC. And don't get me wrong, the commercially produced ones will be really nice to have, but you don't have to have one straight off the bat. You can kind of work your way up to it and see if it's worth it to you to buy one. And then, like I mentioned, there are plenty of homemade options that are pretty good. Now, moving to fiber, what I would suggest to a beginner is you want ready to spin. You want to get it out of the bag and be ready to go right to the wheel with it. It's not so much about what breed, it's more about that it's one of the breeds of wool that tends to be beginner friendly. So what we're looking for here is medium, 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 as in medium staple length, medium micron, and medium crimp. You want it to be, I'd say right around 4 inches, little under, little over. It'll call it a medium wool is an actual micron amount, but anywhere from the high 20s to the low 30s in microns. And then you want it to have a decent amount of crimp, but not a crazy town amount of crimp. The long wools that are kind of like a wave, they look like a curl, that they don't even look super kinky, probably not those. More kinks than that. If you just stick with a decent length, medium wool, you should be good to go there. That is ready to spin. Once again, you want it washed, combed, ready to go. And then I have to admit, most times I don't spin the fiber as is right out of the bag. I tend to split it down into smaller sections, but I could spin it right as I get it. And that's what I would suggest to you. You don't want to do any extra fiber prep, or you don't want to have to do anything extra. You'd like it to be good to go. I was going to say straight out of the box. It's more likely straight out of the bag. Some easy to spin beginner fibers. Blueface Leicester. You can go with, I would say, Cheviot, the longer stapled Romneys. Cordale's an all-star. Cordale's always a nice beginner-friendly choice there. And once again, you'll look around and go, well, what about this? And what about that? There's all kinds of fibers that will meet that criteria of come ready to go, or a medium staple length, a medium micron, and a medium crimp. So if you find something that fits all three of those and you're like, hey, I'd like to try it, go for it. The ones that I will just let you know, the ones that are beginner friendly tend to specifically say that in the description. If you are new to spinning, I would want it to specifically say right in the description that it is super beginner friendly. And the ones that I've listed, the Blueface Leicester, the Cordale, the longer Romney, and the Cheviot, those will list out right in the description that they are very beginner friendly. And then the final thing, this is more of an avoid. And it's because you're new and you'll grow into these fibers, but maybe not right now. They're just going to be, at least in my experience, they're more frustrating to start with. So why not start with a geared toward beginner fiber, since you are a beginner? It'll just serve you better for now. And then when you get to practice, you can go to the new cool fiber, whatever grabs your fancy. For now, I would avoid anything short and anything long. So if it's under 3 inches, if you're having trouble with fiber being too short, 3 inches is probably a little too short. Maybe under 3.5 inches. 3.5 to 4 is the minimum that you need. Avoid anything under 3 inches. This is going to be tough for you to handle because of the staple length, and that's the length of each individual fiber. It's just the shorter fibers will get away from you faster is what tends to happen. So a little bit longer, the medium staple length, which is right about 4 inches. So anything under 3.5 is going to be tougher to handle. To go to the opposite of that, the long fibers. So the really, honestly, I think they're super cool. The long ones you hear about, like Wensleydale, Teeswater, those are awesome. Let's just say it. They're awesome. I like to mess with them. You can do some cool stuff there. But they're a lot to manage for a beginner. It's just going to be tons easier if you can stick with a shorter length. It'll just tend to go a little bit better for you. Once again, stick to the more like the 4-inch mark. 3.5 to 4.5 is, in my opinion, perfect and what has worked to be the easiest to spin for me. Anything noticeably shorter than that or noticeably longer than that, I would keep it in the back of your mind for later when you kind of get the swing of things. But for now, the extremes aren't what you're looking for. The other thing is anything with a really high or really low micron. So the coarse fibers or the really, really fine fibers. Both of those are going to be more, I shouldn't say that, not more difficult. It's more like less beginner friendly. Neither one are difficult. It's just I think you're going to be better off sticking in the medium range. So it will tell you it's a medium wool. And technically, that means between, I'm pretty sure it's 23 to 33 microns. But if you stick in the high 20s, low 30s, that's where it's at. Those are the wools that will serve you the best. Anything that's in the teens, so that would be a really fine wool, or up in the high 30s, which would be a really coarse wool. Those are just going to be not your best option. Are they doable? Sure. Since you're new, why not start with the one that chances are is going to work the best for you now? I would start, or at least I would avoid anything super high or super low in the microns. Definitely avoid anything slippery. And the other thing that will be, you might not realize that it's slippery because all the fiber descriptions, of course, they're going to say the wonderful things about it. And they should, because wow, any fiber that's for sale has some really cool things you can do with it. But anything that's slippery, honestly, they just zoop right out of your hands. And if you're not prepared for it, or if you're already having trouble with the wheel kind of stealing the yarn out of or stealing the fiber out of your hands, slippery is not what you need. You need something with a little bit more grip. Anything almost silky, yeah, that's just not where you need to be. And especially actually if you're using your wheel right now and having trouble with something that's that's slippery that just zooms out of your hand, I'd try a Cordale. Cordale has a little bit of grip to it. It works really nice. And then the final thing I would say to avoid is no crimp. And this, where I'm really going with that, is some of the really coarse wools are more like a curl. And then any of the fibers that are actually hair, like Angora. And by that, I mean rabbit. Mohair is Angora goat. Honestly, I wouldn't start there either. I love mohair. Don't get me wrong. Love Angora too. They're both really fun, but not super beginner friendly. Make sure you have something that has a decent amount of crimp to it. Once again, crimps are the little kinks that you see. The little fiber itself looks corrugated. And the reason those are important is the crimps kind of hold the fiber together. As you're spinning, it almost has a little bit of like a Velcro effect to it. It's not sticky. It's more a little bit grabby. And that makes a world of difference. If you're having the opposite problem, if you're like, I can't draft, which means pull the fibers apart to make them thinner or to make the amount of fiber you're spinning thinner. If you're having trouble drafting and you're using something like a Cordale, consider something that has a little bit more slip to it, something like a Blueface Leicester. If you're, for instance, using a Blueface Leicester, and I'm just giving you examples of in this situation, the Cordale is more grippy than the Blueface Leicester. They're both wonderful fibers. They're both great for beginners. So it's not saying, one's bad or the other's better and nothing like that. It just depends on what you need at the time. So if you feel like you're having trouble drafting and you're on a crimpy fiber, go to something a little bit less crimpy, like a Blueface Leicester. If you're working with a Blueface Leicester and gosh, it just zips right out of your hands, consider using something a bit more crimpy that there's more grip in the fiber and it will kind of hold itself together a little bit better. But really the one that works better for you is, like I said, it depends on what you need for right now. I do want to say that as you grow as a spinner, what seemed hard, at least in my experience, what seemed hard and gosh, to be blunt, so frustrating. Wow, was it frustrating? Now I'm like, I don't know what my problem was with that because just all of a sudden it'll click and you'll all of a sudden coordinate your movements and you'll get it. But you have to keep after it and give yourself a little bit of grace. Give yourself some time, give yourself some patience, and realize that if you keep after it, it will come to you. You will get better. You will learn to do this. You just have to keep going and set aside a part of your day where every day at 7 o'clock, you're going to get out the spinning wheel and put in a little bit of practice. And I promise you, if you put in the time, you will get there. This episode, I hate to give absolutes because honestly, there really aren't any. This is all general, kind of, sort of. But I realize as a beginner, kind of, sort of doesn't help you. Since you just need some direction, somewhere, somebody's going to have to say, hey, just start with this. That's what I'm hoping this episode does for you. In the places where I was specific, that's because, like with the wools, those are just easy, solid recommendations that you can probably get just about anywhere. But with the wheels, honestly, go with something you like or that your friends have talked well about, or that maybe you're in a Facebook group and they said, wow, I just really love my new whatever it is. Well, then awesome. There you got some recommendations. Go with it. From what I've seen, there's tons of happy spinners with all different brands of wheels. Alrighty, well, that's what I've got for today. Hopefully that helps you out some. If you're looking for a place to connect with me, I'd love to hear from you. I have a Facebook group called Handspinning Yarn with a Spinning Wheel. A generic name, but should be easy to find. Love to have you there. You can chat about what you're up to or ask some questions if you have them. And you'll see what I'm doing. I tend to post pictures there and sometimes videos. You never know. I also have, if you're more of a reader, I have a website that's woolmaven.com. So love to hear from you. And thanks for listening. I really appreciate your time and see you next time.